You don't expect your marriage to implode while holding a plate of lemon cake, but that's exactly what happened. It was our 32nd wedding anniversary. I'd spent the better part of the week planning it. Not some extravagant gala, no. Just a modest get-together in our backyard with close family and a few friends. I baked all the desserts myself, including Thomas's favorite, lemon cake with a raspberry drizzle. After 3 decades together, you learn your spouse's preferences down to the way they like their socks folded. You also start to assume you know them. That, I've learned, is a mistake. My name is Margaret. I'm 63 years old. I met Thomas when I was 29, just a year after I lost my mother to breast cancer. He was the one who sat next to me at church, quietly offering tissues as I cried through the hymns. He wasn't flashy, not particularly charming in a cinematic way, but he was dependable, steady, the kind of man who checks your tire pressure before a long trip and never forgets to bring the car around when it rains. We had a quiet life. 2 children, now grown, a dog, now gone, a mortgage, paid off, and all the ordinary little rituals that come with a long marriage, the grocery lists, the evening TV debates, the Sunday pancakes. I wouldn't have called it thrilling, but I would have called it safe. So you can imagine the jolt I felt when I opened the bathroom door and saw my husband with my cousin, Lorraine. Lorraine. Of all people. We were never close. Lorraine was always the kind of person who needed a spotlight even when no one had turned it on. I hadn't invited her out of any deep affection. She was family, and I didn't want drama on my anniversary. Ironic in hindsight. It started with something small. My husband disappeared for a while during the party. I didn't think much of it at first. He's not a social butterfly, and I figured he was decompressing. I just finished slicing the lemon cake when I realized I hadn't seen him in almost 45 minutes. I carried the plate of cake into the hallway, intending to bring him a piece. I knocked gently on the bathroom door, already half laughing. "Tommy, you better not have fallen asleep in there again." No response. I knocked again. Then I heard a giggle. A woman's giggle. I froze. I know what that sound means. And it wasn't a laugh you'd hear from someone watching a funny video on their phone. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to open that door. But something deeper than me, a part of me that had known something was off for years, moved my hand. I turned the knob. And there they were. Lorraine was pressed up against the bathroom counter, her blouse halfway undone. My husband stood in front of her like deer caught in headlights, eyes wide, shirt wrinkled, belt undone. I stood there with the lemon cake in one hand, my heart in the other. No one said anything. It was almost funny, if it hadn't felt like a knife twisting inside my ribs. Lorraine blinked first. "Maggie? Oh my God, I can explain." I cut her off. I couldn't hear her voice. I couldn't even hear my own thoughts. My vision narrowed, tunneling around the image in front of me like the world had folded in. Thomas didn't move. He didn't speak, just stared at me like he was trying to rewrite reality with his eyes. As if this wasn't happening. I dropped the plate. It shattered at my feet. Cake, porcelain, raspberries, everywhere. And still, he said nothing. I turned around and walked out the front door. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't cause a scene. I just walked down the street like I was taking a stroll in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. But something inside me was burning, and that's when everything began to change. I walked the neighborhood for nearly 2 hours. No coat, no purse, just the sound of my own footsteps and the taste of lemon cake acid in the back of my throat. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry yet. I felt vacant, like someone had scooped me out and left my skin behind to do the walking. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Calls from Thomas, texts from my daughter Emily, missed messages from guests asking where I'd gone. But I didn't answer any of them. I couldn't bear to face the concern, the confusion, or worse, the pity. When I finally returned, the house was empty. The patio lights still glowed over empty plates and half-drunk wine glasses. My anniversary decorations fluttered lightly in the breeze like party favors at a funeral. Inside, the cake was gone. The shards had been swept up, but the air still smelled like betrayal. Thomas sat at the kitchen table, his hands folded like a scolded schoolboy. He looked up as I walked in, but didn't speak. "Where's Lorraine?" I asked, my voice so calm it surprised me. "She left." "I'll bet she did." He looked like he wanted to explain, but I raised my hand and sat across from him. I needed to see his face. The man I'd shared 32 years with, the man who used to warm my feet under the covers, the man who was now, clearly, a stranger. "How long?" He hesitated. 3 months. I nodded slowly. 3 months. We'd gone to his brother's lake house during that time. We'd watched The Crown together on the couch like everything was fine. We'd laughed about our neighbor's awful new fence. I'd bought him those slippers he liked, the ones that had just arrived last week. 3 months. While I was busy trying to hold on to the rhythm of a life we'd built, he'd already changed the melody. "Why her?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "I don't know, Maggie. It just happened." No, affairs don't just happen. You don't accidentally meet someone in a bathroom with your belt undone. That's 1,000 small choices. And Lorraine? She had always flirted too much, rat-touched too long, laughed too hard at his jokes. I'd noticed. I just didn't think he had. I stood up and poured myself a glass of wine. My hand shook a little. I wasn't proud of that. "I need you to leave," I said quietly. He blinked. "What?" "Tonight. Go stay with your brother or a hotel or her. I don't care. But I need air, and you're taking up all the oxygen." He didn't argue. Maybe he expected it. Maybe he was relieved. He shuffled out of the house like a dog that knew it had done wrong. I sat in that silence for a long time. Just me, the wine, and 32 years of illusions shattering in the dark. I barely remember going to bed that night. Somewhere between my second glass of wine and staring blankly at the photos on the wall, anniversaries, beach trips, the kids' college graduations, I ended up under the covers, fully clothed, one slipper still dangling off my foot. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just lay there, like a mannequin posed in a life that no longer fit. Morning came, thick and gray. A Saturday with no schedule, no reason to get up. But my body moved on its own. Habit, I suppose. After 32 years, it turns out grief doesn't arrive with fanfare. It just pours your coffee without asking. Thomas hadn't texted, not once, which told me everything I needed to know. Cowards don't call when they should. By mid-morning, Emily showed up. She didn't knock, just walked in the way children do when they've grown up in a house and think they still belong to it. Her eyes searched the room like it had become a crime scene, which, in a way, it had. "I came to check on you," she said softly. I wanted to be the kind of mother who smiled and said, "I'm okay." But lies exhaust me now, so I said nothing. She sat beside me at the kitchen island, both of us staring into our mugs. Her hands were clenched. Then she said it. "Dad told me what happened." I blinked. "Did he? What version?" She looked torn. "He said he made a mistake, that it was stupid, that he was ashamed." I gave a bitter laugh. Ashamed is cheap. That's what you feel when you forget an anniversary, not when you sleep with your wife's blood relative in the guest bathroom during a party she planned. Emily flinched. Good. Maybe it was time someone else in this family stopped pretending we lived in a Hallmark movie. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small stack of envelopes, cards neatly opened. "Mom, I found these in the attic last week while looking for the Christmas lights." I stared at them. Birthday cards, Valentine's cards, all written in familiar handwriting, but not mine. I opened one and read, "Tommy, I can't stop thinking about your hands on my waist last night. I dream about you every time he touches me. Say the word and I'll leave it all. Yours, always. L. Lorraine." The dates were chilling, some as far back as 2 years ago. So this wasn't a stupid bathroom mistake at a party. This was a long, slow betrayal. The kind you water. The kind you nurture. The kind you defend with lies and secrecy and whispered promises behind doors I never knew were closed to me. My own cousin. My stomach turned violently and I ran to the sink. Nothing came up. Just air and bile and the taste of every year I'd ignored my gut. Emily was crying now. Ma didn't wear. I would never have let her near you if I had. I thought they were just friendly. I waved her off gently. None of this is your fault. But even saying it felt mechanical. Like I was reading from a script I hadn't written. Emily stayed for hours. We didn't talk much. We just coexisted. She made grilled cheese. I sipped tea. She offered to stay the night, but I declined. I needed solitude, not sympathy. I needed space to think, not just about Thomas, but about me. Because here's the truth I had to finally face. I'd been shrinking for years. I'd been shrinking myself down into a quieter version of the woman I once was, polishing my edges, apologizing when I took up too much space, making room for a man who, as it turns out, didn't even want it. I thought marriage was about compromise, and maybe it is, but not self-erasure. I was never meant to become invisible in my own home. That night, I didn't sleep. I wrote pages and pages, not about him, about me. About the girl I once was, bold, stubborn, funny, full of appetite for life. I wrote about the dreams I shelved, the places I still wanted to visit, the things I never said aloud because I thought they'd upset the peace. And then, as the sun began to rise and spilled soft orange into the living room, I made a decision. I was going to take back my own life. But not by screaming, not by groveling, and certainly not by begging anyone to love me again. I was going to rise by remembering who the hell I was before I became Mrs. Thomas Carson. And as for Lorraine, she hadn't seen the last of me either. The days that followed were a blur, each one crawling with new realizations. But there was clarity now in the fog. The truth wasn't as simple as Thomas's betrayal. No, the truth was far deeper than that. It was about who I had become in the course of this marriage. The woman who kept quiet, who swallowed every slight to maintain the illusion of peace. The woman who thought love meant losing herself in another person's needs, their priorities, their silence. But I was no longer that woman. I called my lawyer the next morning. By afternoon, I had an appointment to discuss separation. I didn't mention divorce. Not yet. But I knew the path I was heading down, and it didn't involve Thomas at the end of it. Emily tried to talk me out of it when I told her. Mom, you don't have to make any decisions yet. Just take some time. Heal. She wasn't wrong. But she wasn't me. She couldn't understand the tidal wave of anger and disbelief that surged through me. How could I sit here in the home we'd built, knowing that every moment he spent with me had been tainted by lies? I wasn't angry about the affair anymore, not even about the cheating itself, which had been bad enough. What hurt the most was that I had spent years looking away from things that didn't sit right. I had allowed myself to become a shadow in my own life. I wasn't angry, I was disappointed. In myself. In him. In us. That's when the thought hit me. I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was beginning to reassemble myself. I wasn't just the wife. I was Maggie, the woman who used to dance in the kitchen on Saturday mornings, the one who made her friends laugh, who traveled, who chased the sun and lived for herself before anyone else. That was the person I had left behind. The first step toward reclaiming that woman came in the form of a quiet but firm phone call to Lorraine. Lorraine, I said, my voice steady, we need to talk. Her voice trembled. Maggie, No, don't apologize. It's too late for that. I don't need your excuses or your explanations. But I will say this. I have no interest in being a victim of this situation. So if you think for 1 second you'll walk away from this without consequences, think again. There was a long pause, and then, almost in a whisper, she said, You don't mean that. I do, I replied, the words burning my throat. I mean it. I'm done with you, and I'm done with him. Don't think this ends with me forgiving you or pretending this didn't happen. You won't ever be welcome in my life again." Her response was silence. The sound of her breathing filled the line, but she didn't argue. Maybe she knew that the woman who had just spoken wasn't the meek, sad version of me she was used to. Maybe she realized she wasn't getting the apology she thought was due. I hung up without another word. The following days were marked by odd tranquility. Thomas, of course, didn't take my decision well. When he came to pick up some clothes, I didn't invite him in. I stood on the porch, the door half open, as he fumbled with his words. "Maggie, please. This isn't you. This isn't us. We've had 32 years. He reached out as if expecting me to fall into his arms. I didn't. We've had 32 years of me being here for you, of me excusing things that shouldn't have been excused. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're sorry now. You've already made your choices, and now I'm making mine." He looked at me, his eyes filled with desperation. But I didn't feel pity. I felt relief. I had no more room for him in my life, and that was the clearest thought I'd ever had. I didn't look back. I never even turned around. I moved forward, slowly at first. I focused on the little things that used to matter. Calls with old friends, walks in the park, the sound of the waves crashing along the shore. I traveled for the first time in ages to places I'd once dreamed of visiting but had pushed aside for us. And as for Thomas, he became a faint echo in the background of my life. He tried to call, tried to apologize, tried to make it right, but I had learned something important during those weeks of silence. Making it right wasn't his job anymore. It was mine. I hadn't just caught him with Lorraine. I had caught myself, too. I caught myself in the middle of a life I had let slip away. And now, in the quiet space that followed, I was building something new. Not a life defined by betrayal, but by my own freedom. As for Lorraine, she eventually tried to reach out again, but I let the call go to voicemail. No explanation, no apology. She was nothing more than an old chapter, one that I had closed long ago. And as the seasons changed, I found myself happier than I had ever been. Not because I had someone new to love, but because I had learned to love myself again. The woman who stood in that kitchen, looking at the woman she remembered being, was finally back. Stronger, wiser, more complete than ever. In the end, the only thing I truly lost was the woman I was pretending to be. And that was something I'd never get back, nor would I want to.